This is part 5 of the Psychoacoustic series. Check the full playlist here. To recap, check the description for corrections and an index to the video. Headphones are necessary for many of these illusions. And be ready to turn the volume down. Localization. The next section will cover a few phenomena illustrating various aspects of sound localization. That is, the perception of the direction of sound. This is the way sound can be made to appear to come from one place or another in the perceived three-dimensional sound field. First, some basics. The primary way our brains determine perceptual location comes down to arrival times and loudness differences. Here is a repeating click. It is arriving at both of your ears at the same time and at the same volume. Now listen as one side starts to arrive a little bit sooner than the other. You may not even hear them as arriving at different times, but one is slightly delayed from the other. Now let's return to center. Now listen as they arrive at the same time, but one gets quieter and the other louder. Now let's return to center. This time, let's do both. One side will get quieter and be delayed slightly. The effect that the delay has is known as the precedence effect, or the Haas effect. If you push it too far, the sounds start to be perceived as distinct. The spatial effect is lost and one becomes the echo of the other. This all mimics the way sound reaches our heads. Sounds from one side will reach that ear sooner than the other ear. The delayed sound is also shadowed acoustically by the head, so it is quieter. That shadowed sound is also affected timbrally. More of the high frequencies are blocked by the head than the low frequencies. Let's hear the clicks again, and this time we'll pull some of the high frequencies out of one side. Based only on perceived differences between the two ears, we can tell how far to the left or right a sound occurs. But since we only have two ears, and they are mounted on the same level, that's all we can tell. If a sound is higher or lower, it will seem to occur in the same place, right? To some extent, yes. Watch as this listener points in the direction of the click. They do a great job getting the left-right angle of the sound correct, but when the sound moves vertically, they don't seem to notice. You can even move the sound behind them and they have a hard time telling. It turns out that owls are better at this than us. Like us, owls use arrival time to tell the left-right location of a sound. But unlike us, they use the differences in volume to tell the up-down location of the sound. They can do this because their left and right ears are different. The left is higher than the right, and it points downward, while the right points upward. If the sound comes from below, the left ear hears it louder and the right quieter. And if it comes from above, it's the opposite. Humans just hear the same loudness in both ears regardless of the elevation of the sound. Scientists aren't sure, but it's possible that part of the reason that dogs tilt their head when they're surprised or confused about something is to better perceive the location of the sound in 3D space. So it's clear that we aren't great at localizing sounds in any direction, but we do sometimes have the experience of a sound appearing to come from above or behind. From an evolutionary perspective, these both seem like important localizations to be sensitive to. After all, above or behind are the two directions from which a predator is most likely to approach. It turns out that we do have some further tricks up our perceptual sleeves. The auricle or pinna is the visible part of the ear, known to us civilians as the ear. The strange shape of the ear in part shapes the sounds that we hear. Sounds that come from in front, above, behind, or below all get shaped a little differently. For a completely novel sound, this may be of no use, but for a sound that we are accustomed to hearing, such as the snap of a twig under a predator's paw, our brain can use this shaping to place the sound a little more accurately. Some recording engineers use model human heads when they record to try to make so-called binaural recordings that capture all of these various delays and shapings of the sound in an effort to reproduce a realistic sense of space. Fancy audio processing algorithms, increasingly used in VR applications, attempt to reproduce the experience of sound coming from all around. It may be difficult to ever fully replicate the real experience, though. We appear to develop our sense of 3D sound based on our own very particular head size and shape, as well as the exact shape of our ears. So a true 3D sound experience may only be achieved if those factors are taken into account. Stereo widening. There are various stereo widening algorithms. The simplest just increases what is called antiphase content of the signal. Basically, the algorithm removes what the two channels have in common and boosts what they do not. The effect can be used to increase the sense of space in a stereo signal, but among mixing engineers it's generally considered a last resort technique. Listen as this piece of music has its antiphase content boosted and its in-phase content removed. This effect really only works on speakers and won't do much for you on headphones. Sound mirrors and sound ranging. Stereo localization techniques were used in a technical way during World War I. By constructing enormous and often ridiculous-looking contraptions, operators were able to change the virtual size and position of their ears to more accurately and effectively locate the elevation and azimuth of distant incoming threats like airplanes. Sound mirrors worked in similar ways. You really should check out this great webpage by Douglas Self. I've included a link in the description. There are lots of incredible pictures and interesting information about this slice of acoustics history. Lastly, I'd like to present two effects that I discovered myself. Well, it's entirely probable that these are well known already and I'm just unaware, but I haven't come across them in my research for these videos, so I'd like to share them just in case they are new. Neither are dramatic, but I think they're neat. Please let me know in the comments whether or not they work for you. You can be the first research subjects. Consonance calibration effect. We play a bass line on this synthesizer deep in the low range of the instrument. High in the range, we play a melody. Although it's a little musically strange to have them separated so much, our ears tend to accept these two musical voices as being harmonious. Listen for a minute. Depending on how accurate your ear is, you may be surprised to learn that the upper voice is actually playing one semitone sharp of the key of the lower voice. Listen as I correct the key of the upper voice to match that of the lower voice. To me, just after the correction is made, it sounds for a few seconds as if the upper voice is actually flat of the proper key, even though it had just been corrected. After some time, the effect fades. This reminds me of staring forwards out a car window during a trip, then stopping and perceiving the world as receding away. Both the fact that we accept the out-of-tune version pretty readily, and that our brains seem to recalibrate to it, are interesting to me. If you're wondering why I used a synth sound for this instead of a piano, it's due to something called stretch tuning. In an idealized version of a vibrating string, the fundamental frequency is present along with harmonic overtones that are integer multiples of that base frequency. This string is vibrating at 110 Hz, and the overtones are 220, 330, 440, and so forth. In the real world, however, there are subtle differences in how strings actually vibrate. These overtones are actually ever so slightly sharp of their ideal frequencies. As a result, piano tuners employ something called stretch tuning to compensate. This better aligns the first few harmonics of a lower note with the notes above it. This is a graph of the so-called Railsback curve, which shows an average deviation from concert pitch as you go up and down the keyboard. You'll see that if you play the lowest and highest Cs on a piano, the two notes are technically about 60 cents out of tune. That's more than half a semitone apart. So if you're using a piano to tune your instrument, stick to the middle couple of octaves where the tuning is closest to true concert pitch. And if you're trying to demonstrate a psychoacoustic effect, where a very low voice and a very high voice seem to be out of tune when they aren't, you probably don't want this complicating the experiment. Headphone pitch shift effect. I often wear open-backed headphones. I have noticed, especially while mixing music for long hours, that when I take the headphones off, the perceived pitch seems to drop noticeably. I can reproduce this effect by playing a 440 Hz triangle wave through both ears, removing the headphones from my head and holding them just in front of my face with the two halves facing each other a few inches apart. The effect is relatively reliable. The fundamental seems to drop an eighth or even quarter semitone sometimes. The effect is occasionally quite strong with complex music sources. I assume it has something to do with the phasing happening between the opposing headphone elements. I don't know if open-backed headphones are needed for this. I suspect not. Try it out and tell me if you hear it. Here's a few seconds of the tone. Just a heads up, this tone will be kind of loud. It's necessary so that you can hear it when the headphones are off of your head. You might want to skip ahead 10 seconds if you're actually not testing this. Okay, well, that's all the psychoacoustic phenomena I could come up with. Let me know if I missed any big ones, or if you come up with any of your own. If I come up with enough new illusions, maybe I'll make a part 6. I already have a list started. Thanks for watching. A big thanks to my Patreon patrons that are helping to keep this channel going. You'd of course be more than welcome to join them. There's a link down below. If you'd like to make a one-time donation to help support the channel, there's also a link for that. And head over to my second channel if you'd like to see a variety of different sorts of videos over there.